Welcome to the Educational Leadership Podcast, the podcast where education meets innovation and leaders like you transform schools into thriving communities. Join us as we guide you through the ever-evolving world of educational leadership, from strategies that inspire your staff to insights that shape your students' futures. We're here to sharpen your skills, amplify your talents, and ignite your impact. So grab your coffee, a notebook, and most importantly, your growth mindset as we embark on a journey to redefine what it means to lead with purpose and passion. This isn't just a podcast, it's professional development. Let's build better schools together, one episode at a time. Now, here's your host, Principal JL. I am thrilled to welcome Dr. Rachel Edoho-Eket to the show. She is a respected principal, public speaker, author, and the 2025 president of the Maryland Association of Elementary School Principals. With decades in education, she is known for her strong educational leadership, mentorship, and passion for student success. Dr. Edoho-Eket leads a national blue ribbon school in Maryland and also serves as an adjunct professor at McDaniel College, helping shape the next generation of school leaders. Her work, The Principal's Journey, offers practical guidance for educators stepping into leadership roles. Her work is grounded in building meaningful relationships and inspiring excellence at every level. Now let's get into the conversation with Dr. Rachel Edoho-Eket. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Educational Leadership Podcast with Principal JL. I am excited to have Dr. Rachel Edoho-Eket in the house today for our episode. So welcome, Dr. Rachel, to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Jeff. I'm ready to get into this conversation today.
All right, we're going to go ahead and we're going to dive right into it. It's a question I ask everybody. What inspired you to pursue a career in education?
Well, first of all, my family is a family of educators. So I've always known that I wanted to be a teacher. It's always been a part of my life. My parents definitely instilled the importance of having a good education. And my brother and my grandmother was an educator in the Baltimore City public school system for over 30 years. So I grew up really watching her, helping her set up her classrooms. She also was a school librarian. So I would go into her elementary school and help her set up the library and doing the Dewey Decimal System as a young child. And I really just loved the school environment. And then as a student, I loved being in school. I was one of those children that even when it was summer break, I was ready to come back. I miss my friends. I miss my teachers. I wanted to be around the staff members. I absolutely adored my principal. Shout out to Mr. Slacum, who was my kindergarten. He was my elementary school principal when I was growing up. We still are in contact today, and he's someone who I really admire. So in my work as a principal, I always try to think about how I felt as a child, how much I loved feeling welcomed in school and having that sense of belonging. And that's something that I'm passionate about providing all of the children that I serve in school as well.
Awesome. That's really great to hear. There's a lot of educators out there that kind of get inspired by the generation before. For me, I wasn't quite that lucky. I didn't have really anybody that was in education. I kind of found it through coaching. And when I found my passion for coaching, then I found my passion for education. So I really love to hear everybody's unique stories when how they get into what got them going.
Yeah.
So
what did you coach? Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, yeah, go ahead. Yeah, I've coached, I was a head football coach, head wrestling coach. I've coached track. And the funny thing about track, I was a throwers coach, and I was not a thrower in high school. Yeah. I was a long distance runner. So it was kind of one of those.
I was a track girl too. Yeah. I was track as well. So it's a great sport. One of my favorites.
No, I enjoyed doing it. But at the same time, it was just one of those deals where they just needed someone to coach the throwers. They didn't have anybody. And I just kind of learned up on it. And actually, it was a really great experience because I got to coach a lot of great kids in my experience when from football, wrestling into track. And so that was really where I started to like go, hey, I want to become an educator because I get a coach, right? And it kind of
Yes.
built my leadership skills into becoming a principal today. Dr. Rachel, you have had a dynamic career. You've been, going from a teacher into instructional leader, assistant principal, and now a principal of a national blue ribbon school. What are some of the key moments and lessons that help you shape your leadership style along the way? I'd love to hear kind of that transition from teacher into those different roles.
Yeah. So I love being a teacher. That's number one. I was a kindergarten teacher in early childhood, kindergarten first and second for half of my career. So I really enjoy the process of teaching children. I love working with colleagues, connecting with really strong educators, learning from people. And that has always been a part of my story. And each role I found value in a different way. So definitely as a teacher, I loved connecting with families. Oftentimes, a kindergarten teacher is that child's first teacher, that ambassador to the school. And I always share with my early childhood colleagues, there's really not a big difference between being a kindergarten teacher and a principal. I know that that sounds ridiculous, but it's true. In both cases, we're ambassadors for the school. We're welcoming families in, we're getting to know their children. We are taking that time that is needed to get to know the child's interests, things that can help motivate them. So that's a part of this work as a principal that I was also doing, even as a teacher. And then I also really like to be authentic in the work that I'm doing. So when I transitioned from a kindergarten teacher into an assistant principal, that was a really hard transition for me. I really missed being around kids, kind of that closeness of having a special connection with 25 kids. I didn't have that anymore. But what I learned in the role as an assistant principal, you're everywhere, right? You're around the building. You have your hands in every single thing. You're working with bus drivers. You're working with custodial staff members. You're working with your principal. You're working with teachers, support staff there. You really get your hands on everyone. And so I love that process. I love building new relationships with people. I love figuring out where I could help. That's my favorite question. How can I help you? What can I do to improve,
Mhm.
right? Improve a situation. So just those two questions alone is how I've built relationships as an assistant principal. Then I had an opportunity to continue to branch out a little bit, do some more systemic work, and that really set the foundation for the principalship. So, addition to the work that I was doing in my school at the time as an assistant principal, really that district level work really helped me to see even broader than the school. So, when I transitioned into the principalship, another big transition. Sitting in the principal seat is very different than sitting in the assistant principal seat. But in all of the transitions, I've just found my way. I've connected with great mentors. I always ask people who have done the role, how did they find success so that I can also find success in the role, and taking feedback. You mentioned being a coach, Jeff. I've been coached my whole life as a student athlete. I know the value of a coach. I know the value of a mentor. And so I'm trying to be a really good listener when people are giving me feedback so that I don't take it personally. I'm saying someone cares about me enough to give me feedback for me to improve. I appreciate that and I want to make the change. So that has helped me in each one of my levels. I'm still continuing to learn as I transition into president of the Maryland Association for Elementary School Principals. That's a
Yeah.
new role that I'm taking on in 2025, and I'm extremely excited.
Hey, I really loved listening to and just hearing how I could really relate to where when you were a classroom teacher, really your world is that classroom, right? And then when you branch out into the
Yes.
leadership, you're like going, oh, I have to think outside the classroom and more like, hey, teachers and students. I think the one thing that really surprised me in the role of being a principal is how much, I work with the adults in the building and I still work with some of the
Yes.
students. It's not like I forget about them, but my goal is to help the adults become better so the students can get the education they deserve and become the best they can be. And then working with families and parents and things like that, that's just a whole another animal itself. So
Definitely.
then you get into these leadership roles. Now you're thinking more broadly, and then you're thinking about how does these things affect each other. So that
Hmm.
I really can relate to that. A lot of people can relate to kind of that transition from teacher throughout these different leadership roles. One thing that stands out about your work is your deep commitment to mentorship and professional development. You kind of hit on that a little bit. Now, you're not just a leading in your own school, but you're guiding and inspiring other leaders throughout your work as an adjunct professor at McDaniel College.
Hmm.
What advice would you have for teachers who are considering to move into administration?
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hey there, amazing educational leaders. If you're finding value in this podcast, learning new insights, getting inspired, or just nodding along thinking, yep, I needed that, then why keep it to yourself? Share this podcast with a colleague, a fellow school leader, or a teacher that is inspiring into leadership. Send them a link, post about it, or just casually drop, hey, you need this in your life the next time you see them. Let's grow this community of game-changing educators together because great leadership isn't a solo act, it's a movement. Now, back to the show.
Yeah, well, Jeff, you mentioned already, you really have to like people. You have to understand adult learners and you have to also understand children. And that's what's unique about our role as school leaders, that we do work with everybody. We work with the superintendent, we work with community members, we work with parents, we work in my school. I have 3-year-old children, so I work as children as young as 3 who are in preschool, their first experience in school and their families. And so you really have to be a people person. So that's my first advice, is to really make sure that you enjoy working with and alongside people. That's number one. And also just remembering that everything is a process. Nothing happens overnight. And I've really found the value in looking at each of the stages of my career and finding value in each of them. They're all different roles, but what I found is they were all interconnected in many ways. There was leadership in every role. No matter if at the time I had a leadership title or not, I was leading. I was leading my classroom. I might have been leading my team as a high school student, and as a Division I college athlete. But all of those things had leadership embedded in them. And so remembering who you are as a person authentically, what do you believe? That's another important part of advice, is knowing what your beliefs are and staying firm in those, because this is a type of role you're going to hear from a lot of different people with a lot of different perspectives. And if you're not centered in what your beliefs are and who you are as a person, you're going to be like going with the wind. And so it's really important that you stay centered on what your principles are and let those guide you as you're making decisions for your next levels of your career.
Those are all great tips of advice. And actually, those are things that I've learned throughout, my career as a principal, because there's no, quote unquote book to be a good administrator all the time, right? Especially like I started my role as a principal 7 years ago. And so for me, I was looking for other ways to not just within the networking that I've done with at the regional and the state level here in Nebraska, but also, just trying to find what else is out there. And so that kind of going to lead me into the next thing we're going to talk about is, let's talk about your book, The Principal's Journey, Navigating the Path to School Leadership. What inspired you to write it? And what did you hope readers can take away from it?
Thank you. I have it right
There
here.
you go.
This is my book, and I really was inspired to write it because when I would go around my district and I would talk to aspiring leaders, they would say, Rachel, I like what you're doing and I feel like I can do that too, but I don't know how to get through this process. I don't know how to get past the interview. I don't even know how to get my recommendation letters in order so that I can get to an interview. So when I heard that enough times, I thought, wouldn't it be nice to have all that information in one place? Because most leadership books are written from the perspective when someone is already in the position, right? You're a principal. Now what? You're an assistant principal. Here are some questions to consider for you as you're in the role. But very few leadership books were written a step back which is how do you get to the role that you want? And so that's where my book fills an important void in the educational field and space, that I really go through each of the steps in a very formulaic way. So first I start off by talking about what are the benefits and what are some of the challenges of being a school-based leader, because I think that that's important to start. It's important to know upfront, here are some things that are going to challenge you. Here are some things that you might find joy in. And if you finish reading chapter 1 and decide you still want to go to chapter 2, then yes, let's talk about the process. So from there, I talk about getting a mentor, the importance of having that mentor in your life. I have absolutely amazing mentors and have had them each leg of my life. And so my book kind of serves as a mentor in the absence of one. If someone did not have someone to tell them, here's your next step, try this next, my book does that. And so from there, I talk about interview questions, cover letters, how to create your resume, keep it updated so that you don't have to get ready. You're already ready. You stay ready. That's really important. These are things that sometimes people say, send me your resume. Are you ready? Oh, no, I need a week or two to get things. No, you need to be ready. So I talk about that in the book, having your resume ready at all times because you don't know when the call is coming. And then when you interview, we talk about interview questions. What are some answers you need to know? What are some things that help you along that process? And then when you get the job, how do you create a positive school culture? Have difficult conversations. Jeff, you and I talked about this. How do you have a work-life balance? This is a big job. Being a school administrator is a big job. Both APs, principals, district leaders, these are big jobs. And so my book really helps to make it plain for readers. The feedback that I've received is that people like the flow of the book. It's easy for them. I even have extensions from my book. I have a leadership course that people can take with a free copy of my book called the Elevated Leadership Course. It has videos and live coaching sessions. So I really try to make it comprehensive for those who are ready to move into the position within 1 to 2 years.
Awesome. Well, that's all great information. I wish this book existed when I was getting into it, because I would have been probably soaking up this information, because it was really,
Yeah.
it was really a challenge to, like, hey, you don't know what you don't know until you don't know it in education or in leadership at times. I went from being a classroom teacher in 11 years, going into the
Mm-hmm.
principalship. And it was really a journey to learn through. When I got an interview, it was just getting an interview was challenging enough. But then when I
Yes.
got an interview,
Yeah.
how do I, in a way, help people see me in that role for them? How do I help people see that I can do this job and the experiences I have can relate and correlate to the duties and the position you're going to ask me to do? And so I think that's really important for people to have, is this type of a book to know how to do that. And I really like it because I do have inspiring educational leaders that listen to this podcast. And if you're one of them, I think of one right off the top of my head that I know listens to this podcast.
Mhm.
Get this book. This will help you, because you're going to become a brand new principal next year. And you know who I'm talking about. And so really, I would encourage you to look up Dr. Rachel's work, because this will be very helpful for you in your journey as a educational leader as you navigate that. So I want to put that plug in there for you, because I do
Thank
know
you.
that for a fact that I do have some people that aren't principals yet, but they're going to become them. And so I'd really like to really highlight your work and have them maybe give you a follow and give your book a read, to help them become, the best principal they can be. Because we didn't have this, I would say 5, 6, 7 years ago, and there's more out there. And I want people to have that opportunity to become, even have a better start than we did. And so I think that's important.
Yeah.
And I think that's how we can grow our educators in the future as well. So thank you for sharing. That's really great information.
Thank you.
Let's talk about, in addition to being a school leader and author, you're also a keynote speaker, right? I think you did
Yes.
some speaking, not too long ago, I know. Uh, so
Yes.
share your message with the audience across the country. What are the topics you're most passionate about? And when speaking to educators, what are the things you really highlight?
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
All right, educational leaders, you know how we tell our students feedback makes us better? Well, same goes for this podcast. If you've been getting value from this podcast, please take 60 seconds to leave a quick 5-star review. This review isn't just a pat on the back, although I appreciate it. It helps other leaders find the show, join the conversation, and grow right along with us. More reviews equal more reach equal a stronger community of game-changing educators. So hit that review button, drop a few words, and let's keep making educational leadership better together. Now, back to the show.
So I really am passionate about finding joy in this role. This is a very, very hard time in education for teachers, for administrators, for district leaders, universities, anyone who's in education. This is a tough time. And I'm saying that as someone who was a new principal during COVID-19. So that was 6 years ago. 2019, 2020 was my first year as a principal, and it almost broke me. And so I really like to think about how can we highlight the wonderful things that are going on in our schools? Because make note of it. Every school has amazing things happening every single day. Children are learning every day. Children are making connections with their teachers every single day. Families are happy that their children are having great educational experiences in school. And we need to do a better job of highlighting that, because I think each school leader is in charge of, like, I would say, the mayor of the school, the messaging, right? So when we put out the great things that are happening, it's very hard for other people to say, oh, that's not happening in the schools. Nope. Here are pictures, here are events, go on our school website. So a part of my work is really about spreading the joy. And when we do have the times when we're in low morale, which we all do, then what are some strategies that we can use to help improve that situation for teachers, for educators, for leaders? Because the main thing is we need people to show up every day on behalf of our children. And if everyone quits, then we don't have anybody to do this work. So it's part of my message is, what can we do for ourselves? How can we have a balance in our life, a perspective that allows us to come back to this work and serve children every single day, to serve our students and our staff? So that's one thing I love to talk about, is finding joy in the role. I also love to talk about that balance in our lives, right? As you mentioned, I do a lot of things in addition to being a full-time working principal. That's my first job and my most important job. But I'm also a wife. I'm also a mother. I have a speaking career. I am an author. I am taking on new leadership roles under the NAESP umbrella. So there are lots of things that I'm working on that I'm interested in. And what I've learned through this whole process is that we can do many things well. We don't have to be pigeonholed into one area. You can definitely connect with people, find out what they're doing, figure out what you can contribute into the work, even just starting there. What can I contribute into the work? You'd be surprised how much more work and opportunities come to you. And so that's what I've learned, just really through that process of meeting people and adding value, that I've had more opportunities to do that more. And I love that. That has actually reinvigorated me and given me more energy to come back to do the work every single day.
Oh, man, you hit a lot of great things there. I love how you talk about finding the joy in the work. I know for me, I just love it. Like, I wasn't someone that said, I'm going to become an educator. I took the tenure route to finish my undergrad because of being in the military and, working in a factory. I learned through this going, I don't know if I want to do this. This wasn't my passion.
Right.
But once I found coaching and found my passion in education, finding that joy is really important to think about. Even, I'll be honest, just this past week, I had to sit there and think about, why am I doing what I'm doing? And I had to remind myself of the great things that are happening in the role, because there's times where you just get beat down by, just outside circumstances that come into your building that you have to take care of. And, talking about having those difficult conversations and having to work with adults, not just the students, that can be stressful. That can be strenuous. That could be hard, because you're going to have those difficult conversations with those staff members. And that sometimes gets you defeated. So I love how you help people find the joy and keep staying invigorated and wanting to continue the mission, because I think that's really important piece with people stepping away from education. How can you help them find the joy in what they do? Because people that get into education do it because they enjoy it. They want to help people. There's this common thread that I
Right.
hear, from each guest is I just enjoy it. I just love it. And being able to remind them of their, in a way, their why, but to remind them of that is really important. I think that's awesome that you're helping those people do that, because sometimes we need those reminders. So I appreciate the work you're doing
Yeah.
on that, and thank you for that.
Thank you.
And I love the fact how you could talk about the different roles that you do helps you stay invigorated and passionate about what you do. Because I'll be honest, I've learned a lot by having guests on my show, to where it's helped me stay, engaged
Yes.
and like, you know what? There's some great things out there and I'm learning from these people and I'm bringing them back to my building and
Right.
implementing some things that I've learned. And so that is the cool part about being able to branch out and work with people and connect at a different level. So, thank you for that information. And you kind of touched on some things on that work-life balance. I think that's really important, to have that, understand that you have different hats and there's times to turn them off and turn them
Right.
on, and know what
Right.
hat you're wearing at the time, so you can maintain being present with your family as well as present in your work. So thank you for sharing that information. You've had really an impressive career. You're clearly passionate about making a difference in education, at all levels, is what I'm hearing. You talk
Mhm.
about leadership, not just
Yeah.
at educational leadership, but in the classroom and all different levels. As we
Right.
wrap up, what's one piece of advice you would like to leave for educational leaders out there that are listening to this episode?
I would say keep doing the work. I know that that's a very basic message, but it's an important one. Everything that we do matters. You may not get an award. You may not have, the news stations coming to your school every day and talking about these great things, but that doesn't make it any less important. Every contribution that we make to a teacher, every contribution we make to a staff member, anything that we can contribute to our families and to our students has lasting impacts that we will never know how far they extend. And that is what excites me about this work. We'll never quite know. Every now and then, we might have someone say thank you. We might have someone from our past to say, you meant something to me. Every now and then we get those, which is beautiful. But ultimately, we're here to serve. And so my advice is just to continue to do the work, no matter what is going on around you. Make sure that you are hyper focused on children, that you are hyper focused on your staff, that you're also focused on yourself, right? That you are doing that self improvement so that you can come back to this work every day and have a level of satisfaction in what you're doing. So I also just want to say thank you. I know that's not advice, but I do want to express my gratitude. This work is hard. This work is not easy. There are some days that you don't want to come back to work. That's the truth of the matter. But showing up makes a difference for everyone that we serve. And so just keep showing up.
Awesome. Hey, you know what? I find that a very impactful, advice, really, just showing up, being present, and just knowing that your work does matter. Even in the moment, it doesn't feel that way. We all have had experiences, if you've been in this field long enough, of someone coming back and saying, this impacted me and this is how it impacted me. Thank you. And that's something to remember. It will happen in this. And those are the moments you're like going, oh, that makes you feel like, yes, I want to keep doing this because I know what I do matters and it impacts people. And I really appreciate, you coming on the podcast and sharing your educational journey and the great things that you're doing to help educational leaders and teachers and inspiring leaders, for our future. So, Dr. Rachel, I really appreciate you, and thank you for being on the podcast today. As we go here, is there any final things you'd like to say?
Yes, I'd like to say thank you. Thank you, Jeff, for having me. This is important to me. I'm really honored to have had the opportunity to talk with your audience today. And I'd love to stay connected with anyone in the audience. I'm on Twitter at Rachel Edoho-Eket. I'm on Instagram at The Principal's Journey. I'm also on LinkedIn, Dr. Rachel Edoho-Eket. And I have a website, racheledoho-eket.com, with lots of free resources and things that people might find helpful along their leadership journeys. So thank you for staying connected.
Awesome. And just so people will know, I'll take that information and put it in the show notes so it makes it real easy for them to find you. And they can just go down to the show notes and click on the links that you just provided. So thank you for that. Well, we're going to go ahead. We're going to ride off into the sunset on this episode. Dr. Rachel, I really appreciate you being on the podcast. Until next time, always be 1% better. Wow, what an incredible conversation with Dr. Rachel Edoho-Eket. Her journey is such an inspiration, and I love the way she leads with passion, purpose, and mentorship. If you haven't already, be sure to check out her book, The Principal's Journey, and follow her work. You won't regret it. Thank you for tuning in to the Educational Leadership Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with others who would find value in it. Until next time, remember to be 1% better. Thank you for sticking around to the very end of this episode. I hope this podcast brings value to you as an educational leader. I would invite you to share this podcast with other educational leaders, or maybe that inspiring teacher who would like to be an educational leader someday. I would also invite you to subscribe and to follow this podcast so you can get the most recent updated episodes when they drop. I would also love it if you leave a review and rate this podcast 5 stars, because that would make this podcast more discoverable to other educators like yourself. You can also follow me on TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, X, Threads, and Substack. All you need to do is look for Principal JO, and boom, there I am. This is where we can continue the conversations from the episodes that you have enjoyed. I am so thankful for you guys for listening. Until next time, always be 1% better.